Welcome back. If you didn't, please go watch part 1 because I'm just going to get right back into this without any intro. And this message will not make sense without watching part 1. So go watch it. It'll be linked in the description box, as well as timestamps to the various sections of this video. So I'm running through the quarters right now, quarter 1 through 4. And part 1 has a grounding exercise and quarters 1 and 2. Now I'm going to go through quarters 3 and 4 quicker because I didn't get as much information about them. And then I'm going to talk about some stuff. Okay. So the information that I got for quarter 3 is that it's going to be something of a break. It's going to be something of a break. Now, quarter 2 is, I'm not even really good at this. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and September. July, August, and September is going to be something of a break as far as what we're going to see for April, May, and June, okay? But I think it's a perceived break. It's a break in outward chaos. So going back to that diagram that I drew, I said I'm going to be referencing it a lot. Oh my God, this is hilarious. I mean, it's actually not hilarious, but this is from 2019, and I was tracking how many crimes were committed in Pittsburgh based on the full moon cycle. There's a correlation. You can look at the radar and see, I was on like the police seeing what kind of crime, right? Was it robbery, burglary, assault, or different types of things? It's interesting to see with the moon phases. I did some stuff on that for a while. But anyway, quarter 3. So quarter 2 is characterized by this visual that I drew where it's like the outworld shifting the inside. Well, I said I was going to assume like you've already watched the first one, so I'm going to. So this outside thing, right? It's going to appear to stabilize a little bit in Q3, but that doesn't mean this inner stuff stabilizes. I think we'll be reeling a little bit, right? Imagine if I'm seeing somebody taking a fork and like whipping in a liquid so it makes that tornado tunnel. And then you take the fork out, it's still spinning. So we're going to be spinning a little bit in Q3, but it offers us, because this stabilizes just a touch, it offers us the chance to slow and stabilize on the internal level as well. And this is super specific, especially because this is so far out, but I'm getting a message about sunlight, the sunlight seasons for the past few years and continuing a little bit into the future. I think that we haven't been getting our full sunlight summers the way that we need. I'll just put it like that. And so vitamin D supplements, as well as they make sun lamps. So this is very specific advice for quarter 3 of 2024 for people who it resonates with. Or I could be saying this because you might need this now, especially because we're in kind of like the drearier seasons. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere and you're in winter, sun lamps can give you the supplement of IU. You know, I have like a 2000 IU sun lamp and it's the brightest bulb. I've actually been looking for it. I have no idea where it is. And having that shine on your face can give you a boost in mood, in brain flow, productivity. And so it's going to be important to connect with light codes at this time, because a lot of the reeling, the internal settling that's going to be happening within us as a product of the first 6 months of the year, really, it's going to require outside energetic support. Going back to like the light codes, the earth, it's going to require support energetically, and sunlight and light codes is going to be a big part of that. And that's all I got for Q3, but let's take a look at this. Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race is our animal, so that makes sense because I said we're gonna have a little bit of a break, right? We're gonna slow down a little bit. And the other message coming through right now is that there's going to be a lot of people who haven't been as awakened to their mission. Like maybe it's all just like, well, I kind of like to paint there's going to be a lot coming online for the first 6 months of the year that really help you understand how you can make a walk of life out of this, which is a funny way to put it, but that's how I'm being told. It's like a big springboard that a gymnast would hit, back to that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 with the date, the numerology of today. First 6 months or something of this springboard, but then there's this need, again, to anchor in that high vibrational inspiration. And when I say okay, you might be seeing a way, because for me, for a long time, the challenge was okay, well, knowing what I know, seeing what I see, doing what I do, how can I still exist, and be me, make this work? How can I have, be inside a world that's so heavily controlled by this matrixy thing, have to be in that, right? Or deal with money and business and how I want it to go. How is it all going to work? And I have a plan now. I mean, I've been cultivating this plan since 2013, really. This idea of what I want to do with my gifts and my spiritual abilities to help heal people. I think for a lot of people, there's going to be a new container for their dreams, and it's going to come through quickly, but we're reminding ourselves, and we'll have time over the summer to really sit down and think about how to do it. Because a lot of the times our lostness and our prayer and our manifestation, it's not like things outside of us change. It's that if we sit around and wait, we won't keep living to encounter the things that show us how something has to be done. A lot of the times, if we just wait, you're manifesting waiting. You're manifesting expectation and confusion around we have to keep moving, knowing that what we encounter is part of the manifestation. But especially when we have passionate, ignited energy behind that, it can feel like you have to, for some reason, push on, especially if you feel like what you have to offer is very worthwhile and you want to go forward. There's a slowness about that. And the other card that we got for Q3 says Lost Lands, Soul Memories and Gifts. You've done this before. So this has to do with abilities coming back online into people's integration, Akashic integration, senses of self, abilities that you used to use in different timelines that come very naturally to you. So because of that, you might be able to move quickly, but it takes the fostering of groundwork, because it's being implemented in the physical world, at a tenuous time. Not to mention, it's I had another message. Yeah, so the other thing about the first 6 months of the year, and this all changing, is that it's going to happen in such a way that the person, day to day, cycle to cycle, minute to minute, pattern repeat to pattern repeat, it will awaken gifts within people. It will awaken gifts within people. It will awaken massive triggers and amounts of trauma, that people have suppressed. It could go either way, and it will go all ways. It will go both ways. Again, talking about how when people have certain things come online psychically, right? But they have no idea what's happening. Maybe they have a psychotic break, right? I hope that doesn't happen, but there's this need for trust within the things that start to change in our lives, maybe the way that we're seeing. Because if you have psychic gifting, if you're clairvoyant, clairaudient, and you could be these things without knowing it, you could still be clearing out certain things and doing integration in order for it to become bigger and greater. I always tell people, for me, it's you might say, I was always like that. I just didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what to, and then once you do, it will grow. So a lot of people are going to have this enhanced ability to see beyond the veil and hear the messages and have that claircognizant knowing that it's just, intuition, really. And it's a different way, it's a different speed. It feels like for me, it seems like this timeless stillness that I can connect to that does not require any type of like urgency. And because it moves so fast vibrationally, that's why I've always had urgency around like, how do I say what I need to say in the messages, and they come and they go, and what do I act on, what do I not? There's this slow and steady wins the race. That is going to help us remember that the conscious mind is really not king in this transit. In the transit for the third quarter, it's going to be more about the soul and the body, sandwiching the mind, letting the mind be a little bit less important because it might not make sense, right? Because it's lost lands, forgotten stuff coming online. We forgot, and we can't make sense of the fact that we forgot because we know what we know and we don't what we don't. And let's read from it. The world is far more ancient than our documented history suggests. As souls, many of us have experienced ancient eras on this planet that were much more advanced than ours today. As we begin to remember these times, the rememberings and gifts can come flooding back. At this stage, in Earth's timeline, we need the wisdom of the ancients to survive as a species. You're being called to connect with the lost wisdom of your own soul. If you feel guided to make a change in your life, to step into a new career path, birth a creation, or bring an idea to life, but feel unprepared, this card is calling you to consider that you've done this before. Perhaps your soul has wisdom beyond what your lifespan can imagine. Perhaps the intuitive hits and ideas you've been receiving are divinely guided. Perhaps you've been preparing for this time. Some think that lost lands exist in the past. Others believe they exist today in a different dimension. I believe these ancient lands also exist in the souls of those who experience them. If this card comes to you, perhaps the wisdom of lost lands such as Lemuria, Atlantis, and Avalon exist within you. And through surrendering to the intelligence of your soul, you can unlock the seeds of these ancient lands so we can all learn from our mistakes and usher in a new age. Here's an activation. You can claim it if you want. I unlock any forgotten wisdom and soul gifts from lifetimes of the past. Here's something interesting as well, is that sometimes with integration, either seeing into things in the dream space, in the astral, or having past life regressions, where we find ourselves at within humanity and future versus past, is that a lot of it feels very evenly weighted right now. There's a lot of very strange things that I've seen from the past, like past lives or mission work out of body that I have done in the astral, where it looks like it's futuristic, but it happened in the past, because we forget that a lot of futuristic things I think we forget that a lot of ancient things, if you look at ruins or relics or artifacts, they're stripped bare of all their magic because there was a lot of invisible to the eye. Things around the frequency of the light or the sound or the placement of the thing with the stars, you know. It's going to be disorienting for the masses. This will be a pretty disorienting year for the masses. I don't consider anybody who, you know, watches my videos to be a part of the masses. But there's also, it's not easy just to say like the masses and then the people that are not in the masses. There's so many different layers. So many different layers. So the last message with this is that there are people within the masses that always that might not be fully like in an indigo child, light worker, starseed frame of mind or even life path, but they do want change and their hearts are in the right place, but they've, you know, done life the right way. There's no or perhaps these people are the ones who are like very like traditional within the masses. So during this transit for them, I think there might be some type of reconsideration. It may not be about soul gifts and applying things in a new way for this life and projects, but it could be this big reconsideration of meaning. It could be a very existential time for a lot of people around how they've lived their lives. And I'm going to leave it at that for that pile. All right. So Q4. So it's going to do the same thing next year that it did this year, which is kind of what it always does, but there's going to be a pretty quick hastening of the energy as we move into 2025 at the end of next year. And this is really, really cool because what this is signaling, a lot is going to get done energetically this year. A lot is going to get unwritten and more solidified in the good way, written out and solidified, bringing in the ways that we want in order to bring people together more and more aligned with being able to see the truth of things. And the natural byproduct of that is that people will want to migrate away from certain ways of living, certain ways of using certain things and products. And once you see certain things, it changes the way you want to do your life, simply put. So by the end of the year, this similar passage that we find ourselves in now in 2023, as we've been gearing up for 2024, the one that we go through a year from now, is going to be really beautifully oriented around this telepathic net of visions that's the co-created. This is, I wish that I don't have a better analogy for it, so I don't really want to say this, but this is how it's coming to me. Pun intended. Pre-ejaculation fluid, okay? It's like October, November, and December of 2024 has this pre-cum quality to it. And we would be calling a certain main bulk of 2025 the real jizz, okay? You see, I wish I had a better one to use, but something that comes first, right? Like a primer fluid. And what it's doing is that, like, if we think about certain extraterrestrial beings that are almost, they almost transcend, and many of them have over time transcended the need to physically incarnate at all. They reside more predominantly, or exclusively in higher dimensions where physical form is not needed. Now, the beings that are extraterrestrial that do have physical form, they have transcended the need for any type of verbal communication because everything is incredibly telepathic. There's going to be this knitting together of a telepathic web for the people who get it, like the people who touch the frequency that it's accessible from, where it's seeded with all of this beautiful, like, golden age, new earth, age of Aquarius. Information comes from within instead of the age of information, being bombarded with, like, this is the way to do things. This beautiful, and a lot of this, by the way, has to do with grid work and light workers who carry high vibration going to different places around the world, because that does something very big. And it changes and it interrupts the frequencies that have kept the crystalline grid, as that other card talked about, from fully activating and allowing, well, it's always been activated. It's just been tampered with. So reactivated, but it goes both ways. There's this two-way thing where it's like the person to the earth and the earth to the person. It's a mutually reciprocal and mutually beneficially activating relationship. And so for Q4, the people who are at the forefront of this type of thing are really going to be starting to feel into their telepathic abilities to connect with, not like, oh, I'm pinging Bonnie out in Oklahoma. Not like that. More so, I'm connecting with the web of the energy of the people who, like, you know, connect with this channel, or the other people who are doing work like this, right? There's going to be this ability to kind of tap into collective manifestation for co-creative purposes that's going to be very, very, very powerful. So that's cool. Now let's see what we got for that energy. Heck yeah. Dragonfly, 22. Truth transcends illusion. By the way, I forgot to get this message out. That's why I paused. Thank you. I meant to say this. Turtle Spirit, 6 and 2 resolves to 8. And 2024 also resolves to 8. And it's a big shift into, I mean, we've got this year, 7, 2023, and then 8. It's the year of the dragon, okay? And so what I'm getting for the importance of Q3 is that a lot of people are going to redefine their purpose in this Q in the months of July, August, and September. To the point where a lot of people would say that that's the most transformational part of the year for them. Q3 might be the most transformational part of the year, but I have a feeling that that has to do more with the people who have shut down a lot and less about the people who have been moving with the changes. All right, that was just one little thought we had to get out, but 22. Truth transcends illusion. So the beauty in this and how it connects to what I just talked about is that we're having the ability, because it's been, we've been working for so long, if you know, then you know, to create something that people can tap into where like young children, I saw something beautiful. It was ashmi.path on Instagram, who I follow, and she's lovely and has a great way with words and explaining things and talking about her own journey. But she was like, I think it was a reel. She put these clips of like running around barefoot and like swinging, all these really whimsical, beautiful, outdoorsy things that looked serene. And she said, one day we'll talk to our grandchildren and be like, there was once a world where we couldn't do this and that. And they'll marvel at how oppressive it once was and how far we've come as a people. And people are already aware of that with the Great Reset stuff and this return to the earth and migrating away from these caged ways of living and all of that. But the end of the year is really where like it's completely untouchable. It's being linked together, the truth transcending the illusion, in the most massive way that it ever has in our lifetime, to anchor in the physical manifestation of that, right? Because it can't not manifest when people are applying their energy to it, whatever it is. Wow. Fall into my arms, surrender the extremes of life. I have to hide my face so it focuses. Holding the opposites. So it's basically going to be the full deviation for a lot of people from this like type of stuff. Like it's going to be another complete shift for humanity within the awakening, but it affects people differently, right? Because there's a lot of people who have done no spiritual work or evolution since 2012 at all. And then you've got somebody like me who has had their life completely stripped down to nothing. And I've been like, lost in the pits of depression and, all this stuff. When life keeps getting harder, you end up having to find something to believe in. That's what happens. And so that's going to be happening for a lot of people. And the people who have already been through that are already going to have something to believe in. But it's going to exemplify polarity on Earth, right? Kind of interesting, heaven and hell, right? Because those are human labels. Those are human ways to talk about something that is not human. The afterlife is not human. It's after the human experience. So why would the afterlife be human defined as heaven or hell? Perhaps those two things, just like human stuff, already exist in the human world. The Great Mother ushered you in when you took your first breath, and she'll be there when you draw your last. She knows how challenging life can be, that being human can be lonely and confusing, that the polarity and separation can be excruciating when your soul remembers the oneness of Source. But at the same time, it can be incredibly glorious and sweet. So often, we see things as good or bad. When things go well, we make it mean that we're being rewarded. And when things are bad, then perhaps we've done something wrong. However, we're all here to expand and grow, and it's through the extremes of life that we do exactly that. You're being invited to welcome the highs and the lows of the human experience, to let them initiate you more fully into life. The agony and the ecstasy, the beauty and the bitterness. This life is but a single breath in the inextinguishable existence of your experience as a soul. The Great Mother wants you to hand over your loneliness, worries, hurt, sorrow, fears, burdens, and doubts, to lay them on her altar, to fall fully into her arms, to remember that while these extremes are difficult, they can also be magnificent. The more wildly the pendulum of your life swings, the more truthfully you can say, I've truly lived. And here's an activation. I'm ready to embrace the extremes of my life. I lay all that I'm carrying onto the Great Mother's altar and fall completely into her arms. So I'm seeing several divisions around the fact that there are certain people, like, really, it's not about like my way or the highway or your way. Really, it's about individuals going through darkness, returning to self, returning to whatever they want to call it, right? What do you trust in? Can you trust in anything, right? People who have never prayed before often pray after they lose somebody or something tragic happens. And there's a lot of people who are going to be looking for meaning. And there's a reason why there's been such a heavy emphasis on the healing of the feminine collective this year in 2023. It's because, like, the Great Mother, right? It talks about universal life force energy that way, Mother Earth, the feminine collective in our world, in our communities of, like, people who are doing awakening stuff. There's a need as a mother, as a maternal energy, as a feminine energy, and just the feminine polarity that lives within men, right? It's about energy, but everybody, male or female, is learning how to hold the feminine energy in a new way. And it has to do with holding space and allowing. Like a mother with a child tantruming, she would probably let it cry its tears out until it was done crying. And so there's an aspect of the collective that's going to be tantruming. The unhealed mother would go over and smack him in the face and be like, chin up. We're hitting the road. Let's go. You know, put on your shoes. I'm done with this. Shut up. A healed, loving mother would not do that. Or would recognize that there is another way to do that. All right. So I asked for one word for the whole year and received attunement. Wherever you're at in your journey, wherever you're at in your awakening, wherever you're at in your world, you're going to become more attuned. We can't not become more attuned. We're like instruments. We're like energetic instruments. And when the energy changes, our sensors go off. It's attuning us. Okay. Let's see. I had to turn the music off because I need to use my iPad because I have a very long list of things here that I would like to talk about. So that's the forecast. I hope you really liked it. I mean, I'm actually blown away. I'm always blown away, but I'm never blown away because I'm used to it by how incredibly accurate every pairing from the animal and the starseed oracle was for the messages that I received. So, you know, I think it's confirmation, really. We can trust that all of that is aligned with what's coming. With anybody who ever does prophetic work, or if you're an oracle, you know that time is flexible and it's all contingent on the collective manifestation, but it's also already done. Nothing's set in stone, but everything's already done. And it's so paradoxical to the human mind that we can't even fathom it until we start to kind of experience it and experience how it's true on the individual level when it comes to manifesting, and how that really does live in this quantum space of probability, right? Nothing set, nothing fixed. All right, so all right, so, all right. Yeah, so I know I've just been saying that for like 30 seconds now. Some of the themes, I don't want to talk about everything. I actually didn't expect to talk for so long for the first quarterly overview. So I'm just getting the nudge to kind of pare this part down because I have a lot. I actually generated a lot of information, but the generating of it is part of the process for me. I will also turn it into something of a 2024 written update so that all of the information that I got is available for those who are interested. But for the purposes of this video and bringing it all through, I'm going to run through it pretty quickly and then share on the topic that I was most guided to bring to the collective. So a couple different themes: commerce, both on and offline. I think that will be shifting, as well as just the notion of cities, nightlife, and the organization of people, okay? So we know that homelessness rates are increasing. The economy is very unrelenting with inflation and all these issues that we're experiencing. And with homelessness, you know, there's all of these crises with addiction and drugs in homeless communities. Like I think about the state of Vermont where I'm from, and I grew up in a fairly protected bubble within Vermont communities, and then a lot of the rest of the state is, you know, stricken, overflowing with the opioid crisis, and that's what you see in many of the other areas outside of where I come from. And so there's kind of this thing happening, and this isn't just 2024. I see the whole cities, commerce, nightlife, these human ways of doing things are going to start to, they're not going to go away all at once, but they're going to start to look repulsive to people who don't resonate with them. What do I mean by that? Well, think about how much we've had zombie narratives seeded into the collective. It's a lot, you know, a lot of different things, similar to vampire narrative. It's almost as if cities become these places for the zombies. Now, it's really disturbing when you think about the kinds of, I mean, even in this city of Pittsburgh, they're starting to have issues with this like heavy duty animal tranquilizer in addition to like fentanyl, these other things. Those aren't like just casual substances that you find, or I mean, I've always had my suspicions about how large quantities of drugs even get introduced into certain populations. That's something we might want to think on. No secret that there are certain like somewhat necessary relationships between armed forces and like mafias and cartels throughout time. We know about all sorts of stuff with that, and I'm sure people who watch this know too about like cocaine, the 80s. So I think that a lot of people are going to either get completely engulfed and taken in by their zombie life in cities. I'm not saying that it's the city or the country. There's a lot of shades in between. But being in these places where, like nightlife as well, and thinking about sexual energy and thinking about life force energy and thinking about dark energies, because when there's a lot of people fucked up for whatever reason, but like substances, there's a lot of potential for dark energies to come in and latch onto them. So even if you're sober, but you're around people who are drinking, you're around a lot of disembodied energy. And it's not a good feeling. And you don't realize it when you're also drinking because you're also like that. But you will realize it if you're sober around people who have been consuming alcohol. Or you will start to realize it if you are high vibrational and it's like an uncomfortable, or it's basically, this is what I got to this year. Like, what's the point? I don't want any part. What's the point? There's no point. There's no point. I only see like any amount of time. Like, of course there's a social point, a connective point, but let's not forget that like social connection, loving connection, that comes in abundance of ways. Going out to nightclubs and partying is not how I'm going to choose to have that connection going forward. And I think a lot of people will come to that. But the more that people do not, the more that they will kind of get like wrapped into these other layers of the split on the one side. So the split being like a way to kind of exit the matrix or a way to stay in it. There's some other things that are going to be baked into the way to stay in it that are going to start to overcome people, I think. So that's going to be an intensified reliance on like chain stuff and monopolies. Like we've already been seeing this, right? Like all these different things where it's like, are you tired of cooking or being a normal human? Have this meal kit. Everything's shipped to you. You know, I'm not condemning meal kits. I'm sure that they're fine. But if we think about some weird future where like nothing is, right? Like everything's just shipped to your door and it's all by the same company and we don't pick anything. Like there's a weird entering into these kinds of territories when we see services and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into that. Another thing, here we go. Okay, intermingled community spaces, different people forming different kinds of relationships and connections. Now people do this with communities online. Like if you form like groups or support groups or communities online, I mean, I hope to do that with this channel. I want to be able to like continue attracting people who this information is truly for, as it's not for everybody, but eventually take it from being offline to like being able to put something out and say like, I'm going to be in Sacramento. Just kidding. I don't want to go there. You know, and if that's where you are, then I get to meet you. Like that would be great. Right. But also not like for the purpose of maybe even just like meeting up to go for a hike. And that's grid work. That's doing something. So communities that exist online, but also with a shift into understanding that it does matter where people physically are. And there's something very powerful to having a lot of people part of the same group, but they're all spread out. So I'm seeing something around like people will start to have a sense of a change of traveling, not for like, I mean, like fame and pleasure and luxury and abundance and all the things that people like to do with like posting about private jets and all that stuff. Less of that and more of traveling for what it's doing for the spiritual side of it, the connection, what it's doing to earth, what it's doing for you and your creativity when you go there, or for your energy rather, when you go there. And I believe that a lot of people who have been in an era and an age and a time of trying to push along and speak of ascension stuff and like talk about it, they're going to be, I mean, I'm in this camp, cutting out all of the things that have prevented them from being able to like move forward with that. That's going to basically turn into sort of a non-verbal telepathic understanding where you know the people that get it and you know the people that don't. And there's a leaving behind of the desire to be understood by people who don't. Because there's a deep knowing that that's not their fault. And it's not your fault. And it's just the way that it is. And so there's like a refining of the spiritual safety, really, in knowing, and this has to do with what I've been talking about this year, where there's like this weird, nauseous unsafety in like the feminine collective of like, why do we feel unsafe being healed and whole and like seen? Because it's deeply, deeply threatening to like the unhealed thing. Or the fact that society profits off of the unhealed woman, and it always has. Down to the fact that Adam was like, man, Eve, did you really have to go and eat that apple? Okay, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about like the main, these conspiracies that people know the names of, project, this and that. I do sense that there's going to be some moves on that front. So if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. You'll also know that there's nothing to fear in that regard then. But I kind of, I think that we're going to get into more of a time of like, this is how it was a little bit more in 2020. Things have stabilized a little bit, but we're going to see a resurgence of people policing people and kind of like the moral high ground, and a lot of people showing their insecurity inadvertently through the way they choose to manage and maneuver certain chapters that are going to unfold in the coming year. If you know where you stand and you know your truth, then you don't have to really force your agenda, and you're allowed to remind yourself that you're, aligned in making the decisions that are right for you. I think a lot of people, a lot of things, like, here's the thing. I don't really understand all of the stuff that's going on with like Hollywood and actors on strike and everything, but it gave me a little bit of that funny sniff of bullshit that I get, that artificial thing. It's shrouded in some weird thing, like some illusion. I'm not getting like the right read off of that energy. And I think it has to do with the fact that we are conditioned all our lives to love and hate the celebs, right? You can always criticize, you can always adore, and then they do it to each other. And we see all the tweets about like feud between so-and-so. It's always like that. And I think that really what that is like, oh no, the poor multimillionaires of Hollywood, they're out of work. What are they going to do? They're on strike because they can't work? Oh my gosh, how are they going to afford their groceries? Like it's like all of us humans forgot that they're not the same people. Actors being on strike, not having their money. Like, I know that, yeah, they get contracts and they earn to make a living and they're real humans. I understand that. But when we talk about AI coming into, I just think there's going to be these weird pity plays that are trying to act upon the human emotion of like, you will only buy into certain things if you still think that certain things are done for people's highest goods, instead of following the marketing and the money. If things were done for people's highest goods on earth today, then the money would move differently. The marketing, the money, and the motives would all be aligned. It's just so easy to see that it's not. So perhaps like unplugging from mass subscriptions, people might start to do stuff like that. Like I've done this year. I'm unsubscribed from a lot of things, literally and metaphorically. And I've heard and I've sensed and I've seen, and I'm actually shocked that this didn't happen in 2023. I'm shocked that this didn't happen. I'm shocked that we didn't get some kind of temporary blackout. And we might in the next year, who knows? It's these weird little squeezes of power where it's like, don't forget that everything is contingent on the fact that this is up and running. I think it's important for people to diversify where they're keeping all their value and stuff. Like, think about everybody whose jobs or money or this or that is all entirely supported by the phones and the systems. Even if for 48 hours of all of that was, oops, you wake up and it doesn't work. But it was everybody's, nobody's worked. Even for a short amount of time, that would cause some pretty major stuff, right? And then there would be a reason to administer some blanket sweeping thing so that it doesn't happen again in order to protect and support the people. That's been a weird energy that's been floating in the potentials for a long time. I am personally not saying anything or recommending anything, but I'm telling you that I will be getting a bunch of canned food because I want to. I just want to have it because I like the idea of knowing. Well, think about it this way. If that were to happen, a bunch of people would wake up and they would be deeply inconvenienced. And then you could wake up, and if that's happening, you could be okay. You could realize that that's kind of right on schedule. I'm going to keep going. You know, while the world crumbles, I still have this road that I've paved with certain types of trajectories that are not going to be thwarted by what is crumbling. So as things start to crumble, it'll help you continue to migrate parts of what you're trying to do onto the path that isn't going to crumble, because this is hard. Like, these liminal spaces, sometimes we think that we're manifesting something and it's going to look like this, but there's a part of it that's crumbling. Don't fight that. Let it go. It's not supposed to be part of what it is you're doing. And that's going to function collectively and not. But anyway, I don't want to do a whole lot of talk around stuff like that because it's not productive, right? It borders on all that conspiracy stuff that's just really, it's for entertainment purposes. I know that it's fun to get into all the conspiracies, but it does a lot of harm, right? I'm going to talk about something briefly, and then I'm going to talk about something else, and then I'm going to end the reading. I'm sorry, no. Then I'm going to pull 3 of my Angel Answer Oracle cards. So in case you didn't see part 1, I'm going to be asking 3 questions. 1, 2, 3. You can have 1 question and do a pick a card and say, I pick pile 2. And let that be the answer to your 1 question, or you can ask 3 questions and I will have 3 answers for you. All right, so in the year 2018, I was at a retreat. I was at some type of painting workshop, painting intensive with the artists Alex and Allison Gray at a wellness center in upstate New York. And I loved working with them and meeting them, and I ended up maximizing my experience there. It was super enlightening, and I made a lot of really cool work. But there was all these different kinds of facilities at the place that we were staying during this intensive, like spas and wellness centers and stuff. And I wanted to do an Akashic reading with a energy reader who was there. And I believe that she was quite gifted and was tapping into things and provided me a lot of information that was very resonant. But if you've ever had a reading or you watch readers, like, I would imagine that it's hard to have absolutely everything that somebody says resonate with you. It just is, right? Because you're an individual and you're synthesizing things that resonate with you to create your resonant path forward. It's not about right and wrong. It's about varying degrees of being able to relate with someone's truth, because all their truth is their ability to put it into words. So it's not like everything about somebody's rhetoric is supposed to resonate with you, But when it comes to receiving guidance from people, that can also be the case, where I felt like some of the things that she was giving me were resonant and some of them resonated less. But there was this very interesting moment in this past life reading regression. And I actually, I went into her not really explaining a whole lot about who I am or what I do, but I told her that I was only there for the week and that I was doing the art program. And we immediately started getting messages about my art and what I'm supposed to do with my art because of a lot of past lives that I've already spent laying groundwork. That's punny. Because I'm seeing myself in Egypt laying stone. A lot of the maker's lives that my soul has already had are in service of this one. And it goes back to that lost lands card and reawakening lost memories. So in particular, we were going to France and Italy, which those are places where I have been. I've returned to these places multiple times in this life already. And there's a reason for that. France and Italy, they really tend to activate me. They tend to activate my energy. And basically, in this reading, and I have an audio recording of it, I could put it into the, I could sample it in, but I don't think I'm comfortable doing that because I end up crying a lot because she tells me we're going back into the Renaissance. And I have visions. I started getting visions after this reading. Long story short, she told me, she said, I don't want to say this, but my guides keep confirming it. I would never say this lightly. They're telling me that you were Michelangelo. And when she says that on the recording, I go into something of a panic attack. It's not like I'm really having a panic attack, but I'm crying and I'm hyperventilating because sometimes that's how I process energy. And after this reading, I started having visions of past life energy, but it wasn't, couldn't make sense of it really. And it wasn't until about 5 months later that I was with my different healer, she's not like somebody who I just have a single session with. She knows my energy and I've worked with her for a long time. And I ended up going over that with her, and she was telling me it's not really about her because she is a pure channel, really. Like, it's like I'm conversing directly with angels when I work with her because it's not her, right? She's just the channel. She's just transmitting the messages. And she was saying that message and how it was transmitted from those guides through that woman to me had been misconstrued, and that they were very, very upset about that. Because that information, it didn't make me feel good. I walked away from that session kind of in the camp of a skeptic, being like, there's no way that can be true. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't resonate with me. It's not that I don't think I'm gifted. I mean, I'm not that good, right? I'm not as good as Michelangelo, but I could be. I'm still young, got time. No, it wasn't about that. It was about the core of the message and what it made me feel in my body when I received that information, okay? So it was months later, and I sort of circled back to this thing because I never let it drop purely and fully into my knowing. I couldn't make sense of it. I was like, what does that mean for me? And it ended up being that that's not who I was. I maybe, it may be that he wasn't a very nice man, but my past life has to do with being a woman during that time. And I helped him. This is funny because this is not where I thought I would cry, but I might. Okay, so I was an abused woman in that lifetime, and I did a lot of work on a lot of different paintings, and I was very gifted, but I didn't get any recognition for that. I was not known, and I was treated really poorly. And so a lot of the memories that I get from that time, like if you think about a lot of the frescoes during the Renaissance, those are painted right onto the walls. But there's certain paintings that are huge canvases, and there's these huge spaces that they worked on these paintings in before they were delivered to whoever commissioned them, whatever, king or person or church. These huge canvases, And there was like things like scaffolding, but back in the day, right, where you had to be up to be able to access the upper part of the canvas. And there was this little like sleeping quarters up in the rafters, and that's like basically where I lived. And I was like just kind of like this servant, but I was gifted artistically. And that is why such a strange feeling in past life energy with that, because I've seen a lot of those paintings in person, and I've shared this before, but when I've been to certain places in Italy and in France to view these works that are like the ultimate works from the Renaissance, like I cry when I look at them. And I just thought that they were profoundly moving, but now when I think about it, I think about like having contributed to those, right, in a different life. And I also, at the time that message came through, 2018, that was a really transformational time for me in my awakening. I was doing a lot with my artwork in 2018. But I was also pressed with this energy that I think a lot of people are going to start to feel in Q3 of 2024, where I felt like I was running out of time. I felt like I had to all of a sudden get all my ducks in a row and like make things and change the world and be the very best version of myself, because a gateway had opened and I could see that that was possible. But just because I could see that that was possible doesn't mean that it was going to, change the course of becomingness that I was needing to go through. And I remember working with my healer, and she said to me at the time, she said, your energy is going to change for the next 2 years in a good way. And then for the following 2 years, it's going to stabilize. And then in the following 2 years, you're going to get like these big activations of gifts. And then you're really going to be able to like shine and walk in the light. And I was 23 when she said that. I'm 29 now. And I'm going to be 30 this year. I'm going to be 30 this year. And what's very interesting, there's a lot, I don't have this, and my brain isn't generating it like photographically, like I can't channel it back into my mind right now. So I don't physically have it with me, but there's a very interesting correlation between personally my journey numerologically and the years and like life path stuff. It blew my mind. I was mapping it the other night and I was like, holy moly, that's cool. So some synchronicities there. I was 23 when she told me that. It's 2023 now. And those 6 years have gone by and all of that happened. My energy did change. My energy did stabilize. I have come into big like understandings of my gifts in a new way. And now things are going to change, and that's good. So I don't know. I'm not too sure why I was moved to share that one specifically, but there's also this cautionary thing around how subtle it is. I'm not saying that the first reader wasn't a gifted reader, but she could have been seeing visions. I personally don't know how another reader reads. I don't know how another person experiences their psychic gifts. She could have been seeing visions of Michelangelo's paintings or something, we could have been on the right scent, but I knew from the moment I left her reading that it wasn't right for some reason, but I never, and I didn't know how to clear that up within me, except for the fact that I started having dreams or visions of like being in this, it's this one studio in particular. And I think it's because I lived up there in the dusty rafters with the spiders or something. Women didn't paint as much back then. The greats of that time were male painters. There's something very redeeming about this incarnation, let me tell you that. All right, so yeah, I'm really hesitant to go into all this. I have checked so many times that it's appropriate to share this, so I'm going to do it anyway. I don't want to, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I think it can help people, even if you find it later. And I think it's also important just to understand me and like the channel and why I'm doing this. So let me ground myself for a sec. All right, so there's a lot of different things that are initiatory stages and phases to awakening. You know, in the world today, we revere and see women, or the identity of a woman, as being in one of three phases. You're either the virginal maiden, who's innocent, the young woman, or you're the mother, who's functional, and in that era of child rearing, or you're the hag or the crone, who is discarded and beauty has faded, but is the wise era. And society has kind of taken these and warped them. I'm even seeing a scene from the Barbie movie in the beginning where there's a Barbie named Midge, and they're like, oh, well, nobody wants to look at Midge. She's pregnant. They discontinued her. That's an interesting message to be sending. Because the whole movie is about like hyper independence and I don't need no man and I'm Barbie and all my girlies are whatever and we're all slaying, but none of them are settling down or having families, right? And they make a point in that movie of being like, not the pregnant one. From a spiritual standpoint, to be initiated into like what people call divine feminine energy is to walk through all of those phases and be able to hold them in something of a trine. And so we're casting out this idea that the woman has to fall in either of those three phases, you know, because like the crone, the hag, the old woman, there's wisdom, but like beauty has faded. I do not believe that that's true. I believe that the physical beauty untampered with should and will intensify. Like if we think about the light body activation and people's bodies changing over time, nothing will age a person more than stress and substances that we put into our bodies. If we treat our bodies well, we will start to see people being able to sustain different frequencies. And therefore, I mean, I'm also getting reminded that like lifespans are not meant to be this short. This iteration of humanity has been really tampered with. We know this. I know I'm being redundant, but it plays into how we perceive the physical life, the physical vessel, the physical body of a woman as it goes through its phases. Okay, so basically, I became pregnant in March. I'm not going to talk about the circumstances that I became pregnant under, just out of respect for my privacy and the fact that it was a very complicated situation. But the only thing I'm going to say about it is that it's not easy to live with somebody that you've broken up with. So I became pregnant and I didn't know it. I was pregnant for 2.5 months without knowing it. And then I had an abortion. And I believe it's somebody's right to choose. And I think that if you don't believe that that's okay. But like something that pops into my mind, I'll put it on the screen. Things like this, right? Abortion is something that happens, and we've seen it with all sorts of different chapters, right? When people aren't able to have healthy, safe access to it, then they will try to find a different way to have it done. I feel very lucky, especially given all of this crazy stuff that's happening in the world with abortion bans that I was able to like have a safe handling of that experience. But I want to talk about this because I haven't talked about it for a long time because it's taken me a long time to process this, but also because it's private, it's deeply private. Here I am talking about it, I've come to terms with it, and it's taken a long time. Like I've been grieving for a long time, but it changed me. It was an initiatory thing to have my womb space activated in that way. There was a lot of past life stuff, and there was a lot of removal of density. As far as just during the process of, if you're not familiar, there's different methods to have an abortion by, and I used the pill method, which is basically like a miscarriage. It induces what a miscarriage is, and you can do that in the comfort of your home, and that is what I opted for. And it was like the biggest release. Like if you think about a woman who's on her period, she is shedding the uterine lining every month, but it was like a very big shedding for obvious reasons. And it was insanely transformative. And because of the way that everything happened, I was only, from the day that I found out, it was May 4th. And then May 13th is the day that I had that done. So I didn't know about it for very long, but the days that I knew before I had the abortion were some of the craziest days of my whole year. And I want to walk people through that because I do. Now I'm not somebody, like I've always said that if I were to get pregnant at the time that I didn't feel comfortable being pregnant at, and by that I mean having the partner that I feel like good about, being able to be alongside me for a pregnancy. If I didn't feel good about that I probably wouldn't move forward with having that baby because I would see it as a protective measure for the life of the baby. If I can't be my best self for hosting a baby in my body, for growing and sustaining new life, and for raising that baby as a mother, if I can't be the best mother, I don't want to do that to me. I don't want to do that to my baby. And I've always thought that would be the case. But when I found out that I was pregnant, I was immediately very protective over it. And I was thinking, I can't, I felt honored. I felt blessed. I was blown away because, it's pretty crazy that I didn't notice, and that I didn't realize it. I had a lot of symptoms where I felt like I was just going to get my period eventually, and I was just waiting for it to come, but it never did, and time flies. And not to mention, the hormones of early pregnancy are no joke. I was like completely on one. I had my highest sales month of my career, and everyone was like, "What did you do different, girl?" Well, my brain's been marinating in a serious cocktail of hormones that are designed to draw inward and sustain the creation of new life. So I had that going for me. In addition to that, I've never used the word livid so many times. I was so fired up. It was like, I think this is what people talk about when they say like mother bear, like maternal something. It was like something within me flipped on, and it was like, if it was important to me, I was gonna fight for it. And then I'm a very intuitive eater. I've talked about this. As somebody who's recovered from eating disorders, I've come to know that I'm not gonna judge myself. If I really want some ice cream, then I'm gonna have some. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I already had a little bit, No. So I actually ended up eating like 1 to 2 pints of ice cream a day for a little while. And I was like, this is unusual, Mariah, what are you doing? And again, I was just so busy. I was caught up. I was feeling into my body, but I was like it's like, maybe I didn't want to believe it, but I put on a lot of weight. So I haven't addressed this in relation to like weight gain and weight loss, but it's obvious now that part of the reason why I've been losing weight steadily since the summer is because I put on about 25 pounds being pregnant, and I've effectively gained and lost all that weight within this year, because I was doing pretty well with my fitness and everything I was doing in February and March, and then I put on weight. So that's kind of like the missing piece of my personal puzzle with that. But I think about how miraculous that was, that my body was asking for what it needed, like progesterone. Like I was eating in a way that actually was the best thing to do for my body. I didn't care that I was gaining weight, and that's a very good thing because I needed what I was craving. So another reason why I was so like almost excited, I want to say, when I found out, and this is also like sort of out to lunch on the pregnancy brain of it all, because the impulse, the maternal instinct, right? We hear about mothers they start nesting in early pregnancy. There's these instincts that are very hard to contend with from the logical mind perspective. So these instincts like took over, and I had been having dreams of this baby for 6 months. For 6 months, not like every night or anything, but I had already seen this baby. So when I found out that I was carrying the baby, I was really emotional about that too, because I hadn't dreamed of him in a little while, and I was like, oh, it's because he's always with me now. It's because he's here. It was like I was talking to a part of myself instead of something outside of me. And I will talk about this because I went through a really, 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 really deep grieving around having to let this baby go. And because I didn't see the baby's energy or anything for a long time after this, but he is back now. So for people who disagree with abortion, I'm not necessarily saying I support it. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more because I do think that a lot of young women use it like birth control today, and that's wrong. That's not okay. I think that society is to blame for that and trying to, promote this like promiscuous stuff that is so normalized. And I'm not necessarily saying that I will tell you this, I will do everything within my power so that I never have to go through that again, ever. I never, ever want to do that again. I believe it was the right thing for me to do then, but I will never do that again. And so it's complicated, and it makes it really hard that it's such a big issue on the world stage because, I mean, come on. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why. But I was worried that he wouldn't come back to me, or that I wouldn't have the chance to connect with the spirit of this baby that wants to be born if I wasn't able to go through with it. So I found out I was pregnant. I was deeply, deeply moved and excited. And I was actually trying to figure out ways to be able to have this baby, because I felt on every fiber of my being was saying, this is what my life is about now. Because that's what my energy was doing. Everything within my body was going in to try to, make space and make room. I mean, at 10 weeks, you feel I looked different. You could tell. I felt different. I looked different. And I was acting different. And it was like my brain was suddenly informed of why we were doing what we were doing. And I was like, oh, I have to get on board. I have to do this. I have to do that. And I told a select few people of what it was that I was going through at the time. And it was interesting because I had people who were 110%, oh, well, you got to take care of that. And then people who were like, it's a blessing. I had both camps really within the select people that I chose to confide in about this. And that made it even worse because I was like very confused and very split. And I was actually aware of the fact that I was incredibly hormonal. And so in my wise mind, I was like, how can I connect with the right path? Because I don't even think I can trust my intuition right now. My intuition had been overridden by the maternal thing. And I basically slowly had to accept that it was not the right time. I was really, really intent on separating myself from my partner. And I believe that two people can healthily co-parent without being in love. I believe that. But I really did not want to sign my life up to be intertwined with this person. What's interesting is that when I dreamed about this baby, the baby had taken on, these dreams of the baby, I would be like nursing the baby, holding the baby, just experiencing the baby's energy. The baby had taken on the qualities of my physical partner as if it had been our baby, as if we had made this baby. And his energy has now been released out of that, because that's what I was manifesting as I was with that person. And when I was grieving the fact that I was going to have to, or I felt like I wanted to make the decision of terminating the pregnancy. I mean, really, I didn't want to do anything. I felt trapped. I felt trapped in my body. I was uncomfortable. I was starting to become pretty uncomfortable physically. I was shook by all the changes taking place. I mean, my boobs were enormous. Like, it was very interesting. I started to realize I would never want to go through this, even just not even a whole life of parenting, just pregnancy. I would never want to go through this without the right person who I trust by my side. And I did not have that. And at that point, it was my right to choose. And that was a huge, huge factor. But what that looked like for me, I just did a lot of pacing. I did a lot of meditating. I did a lot of talking to the baby. I did a lot of, praying to my angels. I was asking, is this it? Will I be able to be pregnant again? Is this my baby now? Or, why is this happening to me? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? And it reawoken a lot of maternal past life energy around how troubling and traumatic birth can be, but also these systems around women's reproductive organs and health. And how a lot of male doctors over time have engineered certain things, done experiments. The body of the African American woman specifically carries a collective trauma around some of the crude, if you think about times of slavery, experiments that were done on women. So the purpose of this, for me, I think, was to have a lot of stuff reawakened when it comes to my understanding of what it means to be in a maternal energy. It was a rite of passage. And so sorry, I'm just skimming through some notes that I took. Yeah. Okay, so in some ways, I started to feel like I knew why my body was the way that it was. Like, the purpose of a woman's body is to house a baby. I'm not saying that if you're a woman, you have to have a baby, or that that's your purpose. I'm not saying that at all, but it was designed to do what it was starting to do, which was grow new life. And so I felt like It was some cruel joke that I had to experience how beautiful that was to start to feel. And then I had to make the decision to put an end to that. It was like, it was really illuminating and beautiful, but it was really painful at the same time. So that was like confusing, right? That's a lot. But I knew that I wanted to make that decision. And I prayed and I said, I want, to my baby, I said, just come back. It's not time. Just come back when it's time. And in the ways that I do, I got confirmation that that would be okay and that would work. And so I have to go to the clinic. I go to a Planned Parenthood. I get a pill, and there are people outside who are anti-abortion rallying. And I will just say that I could have been going there for any number of reasons. There's not just one or two reasons why a person goes to a Planned Parenthood. I could have gone somewhere else. Because there's often people, picketing outside. But this was a hard day for me, okay? It was a hard day, and I had been having a hard week. And I had parked my car, and I was going in, and this was just the appointment to pick up what I needed to pick up to be able to go home. And I took off about a week of work so that I could do what I had to do and then just cry and not see anybody, not do anything, and just take my space. I took off my whole time to be able to do it in privacy. And I was walking up to the front of the building, and this woman gets right in front of me, and she starts handing me something, and she's like, have you considered your options? It was so invasive, I can't even tell you. She didn't physically touch me, but she physically blocked off my walking path and didn't say hi. It wasn't a human to human interaction. You don't know my life. You don't know why I'm here. You don't know what emotions I'm in. You don't know you don't even know if I'm pregnant. You don't know the circumstances that I got pregnant under. You do not know. And you do not care. What you care about is what your mission that you're protecting at all costs. And I am not one to criticize another person for having a mission. But the irony in so many of these people who have missions is that they compromise what it is they say their mission is for by embodying it. They force it onto other people. They don't know how to live and let live. And I'm telling you, like, being pregnant, if you think I have the ability to be like, who knows, to choose somebody out or do something with force, it was times a million, okay? So if you've seen Spirited Away, if you haven't, you should. If you have, then there's a scene where like No Face has eaten all this stuff and he's like really big. He's like sitting in the tub. It's kind of grotesque. There was like a version of myself that like swooped out of me and was like chomp, like bit her head off. I was so angry. I can't even tell you. It triggered me. Like, it was hard enough to just go there and walk in, and have to go through all the motions. I felt very triggered, not to mention I've shared that I have PTSD from being mishandled in like those types of spaces before, OBGYN stuff. And so I was already incredibly anxious. And then to have somebody like come into my path like that, I took a deep breath. I said nothing. I stared in her eyes and I stepped around her and I walked in the door. And I was proud of myself for not doing anything because I wanted to bite her head off. And as I left, she was still out there. And I mean, a few people were, right? I get it. I mean, have your cause. I get it. You can do whatever you want. I mean, when I was checking in, the woman was like, did you happen to be heckled by the people outside? And I was like, I mean, I guess so. And she's like, okay, well, we're trying to build it's like wars again. It's like, ugh. The whole thing. So she was still out there. And I think, because energy speaks louder than words, doesn't it? I didn't have to say anything, but she was like kind of wary of me, She didn't say anything when I came out, but she was staring at me and I was staring at her. I looked her dead ass straight in the eyes and I looked at her And I stared straight in her eyes as I walked past her. And then I walked all the way down the street and I got to the end of the block and I had to cross the street. So I pressed the button because I was going to walk across the street, and I looked back and she's still staring at me. And I knew that she was, because I think something about my energy like moved her or disturbed her. I mean, I was carrying a gale force of like rage. Hard not to feel that. And she had walked up to it and tried to shove something in its face. And it pissed me the F off. I found it rude. And when I looked back at her and she was still looking at me, I just shook my head at her. I looked at her and I went, like some punishing grandma. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was pissed. I didn't want her to still be looking at me. So there's always a version of myself that's more reactive that I'm not acting on. Inside, I wanted to be like, what? What? That's what I wanted to do. But I just shook my head at her. And then I went back and I got in my car, burst into tears. So mind you, this point in my life, like, I'm a Cancer zodiac sign. We're emotional. I process little things with tears because it helps me. It makes me feel like I'm not storing anything inside of me. But like, basically, I mean, but before and after, even after I got back to work, there was a period of time, like I was a leaky faucet of tears just because my hormones had to stabilize again. You know, this is a very tough thing to go through spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically for anybody. So a lot of tears accompanied that hormonal stabilization. But it was hard to perform and just be out and about, right? Because every time I have a job where I'm constantly seeing clients in their home, getting back in the car, driving somewhere else. Every time I closed my door and got back into my car, I was just sobbing again. I couldn't help it. And somehow I was able to stay together enough to just process it the way that I needed to. And that went on for a long time. Months. There's a reason why I'm sitting with this so heavily in the month of December. And that's because I would have given birth this month. And like in the months that have passed, there'll be days where I feel really connected to it, or like I'm crying again about it. And I realize like it's, I ended up doing the abortion for scheduling time permit. This is how the timing worked out. It was the 13th of May. It was the day before Mother's Day. And I was like, of course it is. When I get these inclinations and I'm grieving or I'm processing about it again, thinking about it again, I'll be like, oh, it's the 13th, but it's 4 months later. Like, there's a reason why we process things when we do, and your body knows, your body remembers, your body feels. My body knows, there's other reasons that my body shows me that my body knows what a month looks like, right? And I guess because I've opened this as a topic, I can address, there's a lot of things that I've wanted to say over the past 6 months that I haven't said, because the analogy that I got was about this in some way or another, and I wasn't ready to like admit to this part yet publicly of like my chapters. But now that I have, I'll be able to talk about it and explain. And so a few other things that I'm just gonna cover before I move on is that it took a while, but my baby's energy is back with me. He's a boy. He hasn't been born yet, but the thing is, not only the baby wants to incarnate. The baby's very gifted. The baby's like, I got to do my stuff, and I'm like, I know, little baby, I know. You're gonna have to learn how to eat and walk and talk first. But here's the thing, the baby's going to be deeply telepathic. I already know how to talk to the baby. It's not even born yet. So when he has a body, we're still going to be able to connect. He's very gifted. There's a reason why I'm the one that needs to be his mama. Okay. And the baby needs to be born pretty soon so that he can align with the right, just the same reason why I was born on the 22nd of June in 94. There's a reason why this baby has to come at a certain time, okay? And I'm like, hang on, hold your horses. Your dad's not ready. I don't even know if I know him, right? Like, it's a lot. But his energy is really comforting to me because I had a lot of, I've shared this in the past. I wasn't really raised Christian or Catholic in the church. In fact, I have a lot of Buddhist influence from my father's side and having spent time in Asia. And I've got a lot of Christian guilt that's past lifey, which is interesting. And at the time that I was pregnant, it was available to me to counsel with somebody who is a faith person, to be able to have counsel with a person of faith who's very against abortion, right? And I wanted to be counseled, and that was available to me, and so I utilized that service, let's just say. But like I talk about with other stuff, like bedside manner and the irony in saying that you're there for somebody or supporting somebody, but really not actually doing it. Unfortunately, I ended up feeling awful, self-punishing almost for my decision to terminate that pregnancy because of that session with that person who's a well-meaning, beautiful soul, a pastor, somebody who had to find their life, their journey through the path of going a little astray, having a wake-up call, finding God and Jesus, and begging to be used as a mouthpiece for the word of God, begging to be an agent of change to do God's bidding on earth. That's all very religious in language. And for some people, that's the only language they will accept. I tend to think that my path is the same. I went a little astray. I found the light. It doesn't look the same exact way, but I promise it has the same mission, as those people. My whole thing is like, I want to love thy neighbor. I want to do certain things that are very aligned with what it is you say that you want to do. But you're telling me that mine's not right. And that's what happened with this conversation. And I felt very judged for making the choice to terminate the pregnancy. In fact, what was said to me, because I did it uncounseled, I needed to make that decision alone. And then I spoke of my decision, and what was said to me was, oh, no, so you've already decided to do that. Now, I sit here today feeling good about my decision, knowing that it was the right thing to do. But at the time, that sent me into the biggest tailspin, just to have somebody, there's an implication with the tone and the words used to express that. Oh, no, you've already decided, so you've already done that. That was really hard for me. And I think we just need to remember and sink into the understanding that everybody's journey is different. And I think it gets a little stale when women are up in arms. There's nothing wrong with this. The fight is real, the rage is real, but when women are like, it's my body, my choice, that's true, but that's not getting through. And I believe in activism and protesting and stuff, but really when you pick things up with rage and you try to force it back in someone else's face, that's just fire with fire. And it makes me think of the message that came through for Q2 for 2024, which is fighting or feeding. Are you fighting or feeding? They're both still in the thing, right? People who are fighting against the people who are feeding the system. That's still the same type of energy. The other thing that I became very aware of is that if my energy can change so radically and be like, I was having a lot of psychic stuff too. Not to mention, so I had a lot of rage because I was in this the rage was like this alchemically unearthing. If you think about rage, if you think about fire elementals, I was burning through, I was changing very quickly. So peaks and valleys, I was also elated at certain points when I was pregnant without knowing it. And again, I said I had a very successful month in my job. I think that's because I was embodying a different side of myself, right? And of course, luck and favor go into it as well. But when it comes to executing things and being a high performer, there was something that was going on within me where I felt like I was embodying a more fully realized version of myself because of what I said before, where it felt like I was realizing why, like what the womanly body does. I mean, I didn't know it, right? But that was happening within me, creating all these dreams, these different experiences, these different ways of relating. And then that all went away. The rug was pulled out from under me. I got quite sad, and I did put on weight for pregnancy, but then I comfort fooded myself. And then I went to Italy and I was like, eh. So I just allowed myself and my body to change. And as I've recovered from that in every way, I've started losing weight again because there was something about feeling my physicality in such a incontestable way, where I knew, I was like, if my body can change this much in 2 months, how on earth is it going to be pregnant for 9 months? That's going to be insane. That's going to be wild. That's going to be so transformative that I will never be able to go back. And I'm sure every woman says, I mean, I knew this before I sampled it, right? And I hate even using that wording because it makes it sound like something you can sample. Don't, back to the thing where people do use abortion like it's no big deal. That's not true. That it's a big deal. That was my first one. I've never had to do that before. So many close calls, right? But I've never had to do that before. So, and I will never do that again. It was awful. It was truly awful. It was really hard. But I became aware of the fact that there's going to be a lot of changes that happen for me spiritually when I am pregnant and end up having a baby. Oh, I also made, I'm not going to show them because I'm kind of protective over them and they're pieces that have to be seen in person, but I made a painting when I was, before I had the abortion, still when I was pregnant, which was, that was just the hardest time because I felt stuck in my body. I was constantly hungry, but never full, constantly tired, but like couldn't, sleep, and just like achy and just like farting all the time. There's just a lot going on. And I was like, I just want to be free of this, if I can't, because I actually kind of liked how it felt to be pregnant. I kind of liked it. I liked eating whatever I wanted. I liked, or at least, responding free of judgment on myself. I liked it. I kind of felt at home in it, but then it wasn't real. It felt like some cruel trick where I was going to have to say goodbye to all of that, and I, as I often do, I took that energy and I moved it into the paint. I made a painting. It's interesting. It's sort of like this big mandola, like an almond shape, like a vaginal opening. But there's sort of a little angel baby in it too. It's an abstract, and it's special. I really needed to make that painting. And then I made a painting using some of the blood. It's not a painting really, it's a drawing. And both of those are in my apartment. To help me process those experiences. So Okay, another message with this is that when I look at the painting that I made when I was pregnant, it's very channeled, as a lot of my work is, but something like this, I channel the vision, and then sure, I channel when I'm painting, but it's not like I don't know what it's going to look like, right? If I conceive of the vision first. But with abstract, if I don't have a vision and I'm just letting the paint be what it is, then I choose things very intuitively. I'm not like, oh, I'm going to do skin color where there's skin. So it ended up being that if I look at that painting now, there's an incredible amount of symbolism between the colors and the energies. And so it's my artwork and how I use it to translate energy and help heal people and do stuff. Like if somebody looks at paintings that I do, and it can help them because I imbue them with energy. But this is going to change after I have my first child. I'm sharing this because this could be the case with other people who do spiritual work or have healing gifts who have never had a child. If that's on the forecast for you, if that's something you're going to do, then your creative powers will change a lot when you have your baby. It's going to be even more so that the things that work through you that make your work magical or make people connect with it, it's going to be times 100, so that there are so many different things baked into your efforts and what you're doing that impact people and resonate with them in ways that you would have no idea. But that's what's going to be coming through you, because this is one of these levels of initiation. So there's something kind of strange, and I know that a lot of people, certain people might, right, again, disagree with the decision to have terminated that pregnancy. But I see that whole experience as having been very necessary, because I received this maternal initiation, even though that wasn't it was a false start really with that baby. And I rest easy now, because I get visions of my baby again. And I know that his soul is with me and that I still get to have that baby. I've also, this is super vulnerable to share, but I'm going to share it. I've gotten visions of a girl for the first time in the past few weeks. I've never seen a baby girl before, but I'm seeing her too. I actually see her when she's a little bit older. So that's very special for me. But I wanted to talk about it because it's been a huge thing for me this year. It's been one of the most transformational things that I've ever gone through. You can email me about it if you have questions, or I don't know, want to say something or have also been through that. And I'm going to close before I do the angel answer oracle cards. I want to, so it also probably makes sense why I talk about children and mothering so much. You can kind of understand there's a lot that has been shifting in the way that I think about things since May because of that. Yeah, before I get into the angel answer oracle cards, I just want to say that back to that whole prophecy really that my healer gave me when I was 23 years old, talking about the next 6 years. And now I find myself here now, where she was saying because we were talking about what I want, right? I was 23, I was trying to manifest. I was like, well, we know I'm this, we know I'm that, we know that the world is this, and my healer could see things that I couldn't. I've come into certain manifestations that it's she saw that I was going to manifest. It's not that she right? She could see that I was going to manifest things and I didn't even know that I wanted those things back then. So it's high level and it's confusing to think about. But at that time where she was talking to me about the next 6 years, which have now come to pass, I was thinking, I want to be successful next week. How am I going to wait that long? What am I going to do in the meantime? what possibly more could I have to learn? Universe, what else are you going to throw at me? What lessons? That's kind of how I felt, to be honest. I remember. And I almost felt like let down, like I wasn't worthy of creating my own healing business or anything like that. Like it wasn't the right thing to do because it was going to take so long, which is obviously not right. That's not the right interpretation of that message. That's not what was said to me. But that's kind of how I felt. Because nobody likes to be told, you know, the ego doesn't want to be patient. And if it's asked to be, it will kind of bypass that by doing something else. And so for me, it was like feeding me delusions around like, well, maybe you shouldn't do it at all. But really, it doesn't matter how long something takes. If you're really meant to do it and your soul really wants you to move along the path of something, to bring something into this world, then you actually can't get off that path. So why not sink into the acceptance of the fact that things are beautifully manifested in beautiful ways and things will come easily to you, but that it will require hard work and patience and dedication. And that, if that gives you a certain kind of sensation where you're like, but I don't want to. Well, remember this. Humans were born to work. You actually don't want to sit around, right? The way that people paint this luxurious lifestyle where you can get a bunch of money and then afford to have, quote unquote, made it. You'd get bored if you sat around all day, you know, hanging out with your Afghan hounds and their chain collars, smoking weed, rolling in your money. You'd be like, I want to go for a hike. Like, let's go do something, right? The human is designed to apply themselves to something. And so the dedication and the hard work is actually the product of our humanness. We just have to channel it in a beautiful direction. And everybody is chain and balled to the bad system that's not really worth it, right? We're sustaining our own demise, really. When we're paying and feeding into these systems, a lot of people are working and spending their human lives by continuing to buy into this thing that keeps humanity as a battery that fuels a bubble that's very protected. And we don't live in it. But everybody could if you just work a little bit harder. No. So that's it. That's it for today. I'm going to do the Angel Answer Oracle, but I really hope that you enjoyed that. If you did choose to listen to it, I'm sorry for the heavy content. It's not really the easiest stuff to talk about. I didn't cry. I choked up throughout, but that's to be expected. And I'm not saying crying's a bad thing. It's just obviously like not preferable for my YouTube channel. Like I prefer to just be able to keep it together and power through so that you can understand me, not because I'm ashamed. As a recap, I'm going to be pulling 3 of these cards. You can have one question that's answered by all 3. You can pick a card and have that be your answer, or you can ask 3 questions. You can effectively do whatever you want. You can pick 2, you know. All right, folks. Holy cow, I actually feel incredibly like, I really needed to get out that 2024 reading. I've been gathering little snippets of channeled information for weeks about that. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited that I did it. I probably won't watch it for a little while because I need to reflect on it. But like I said, I'm going to be not doing long form readings on the channel until after the 15th of January, which is, maybe I'll come and do like a quick energy check-in, like 20 minutes or something. But like these big ones, I need to take a pause out so that I can get the information going on the website. I just feel really good about getting this video out. And I said I'm not going to review it, but like I'm pretty sure that it was really good. I'm pretty sure we did a great job. I'm pretty sure I did a good job translating my information. I always hope that I do. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. All right. Card 1. Listen to your intuition. I know this is always annoying because these cards are supposed to be like, I just want an additional something, a yes or no. Well, maybe you're not meant to know right now. Maybe the not knowing is what brings you to your answer. One way or another, the needle's going to turn, and it's up to you to continue clearing out what it is that's preventing you from really connecting to the truth in the answer. Okay? Listen to your intuition. 2, card 2. Yes, exclamation point. She holds the sun, she holds the moon, and she has that white unconditional loving light streaming down into her crown. Balance between masculine and feminine energies and polarities. Yes, exclamation point. What's our last one? Card 3. It says wait. The situation that you're inquiring about does not have a clear answer or resolution, nor does it require action or resolution at this time. Okay. King of Swords. I just wanted to cut the deck in order to leave a lasting energy and impression off, but I'm sending love and peace out into the world today. I hope that everybody has a very happy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I personally am having a little gathering of just a small group of people over to my home. I've been cleaning for 2 days. I love hostessing. It looks fabulous down there. You'd be shocked. I've been like living in like piles of notes and stuff, and it's clean. I cleaned. It's a great time of year to clean. But I got a bunch of uncracked geodes because that's very symbolic if you think about the fact that the geode has never seen the light of day, and in order to crack it open, you're bringing something entirely untouched into the world. It was formed in the darkness. And so I'm asking my guests to imbue their geode with their dreams and their wishes for 2024. And then they can crack it open with a hammer and expose that to the light. And everybody will leave my house by 10:30 p.m. and I will be in bed by 11:11. Happy New Year.